Hey everyone, today we are going to get our normal mode raid release in the patch 7.01, and with that comes also the first round of balance changes. There will be a second round of balance changes coming with the Savage patch in 2 weeks, but for now we already got a couple of improvements to some of our jobs so that they play a little bit better. So I'm just going to go over all of the changes and kind of give my 2 cents on them. So starting off with our tanks, essentially all of the tanks have gotten the same thing. Increased enmity has been added onto some of their most important aggro actions. For Paladin and Warrior, it's only going to be on their AoE skills, and then when we look at Dark Knight and Gunbreaker, it's also going to be on their gap closers as well, because the gap closers don't do damage anymore, so these are now going to get an increased enmity effect added to them as well. For Warrior as well, we get a small change to Primal Rend. This has been reduced from 30 seconds to 20 seconds, so you just gotta press it faster now after you finish your Fel Cleaves. And Primal Ruination is gonna have its potency buffed, so small warrior buff right there. Just make sure you don't sit on your Primal Rend for too long. Then Monk has got a whole list of adjustments, but the takeaway from this is basically all your normal GCDs have their potency buffed. Don't worry, this is not a huge Monk buff in terms of like how much damage they're going to do, at least I don't think so, because of a change that you'll see later in the patch notes. So I'll come back to this later a bit as well. Another important thing to note is that your AoE combo has been buffed as well. The main reason for this is right now we're interacting with a job gauge rather than with buffs and debuffs, and the job gauge does not affect our AoE rotation. So back in the day we would get a damage buff from the second hit in our AoE rotation, which would then buff everything, of course, but right now we don't have that, so that's why they upped the potencies to make it so that you kind of still have this damage buff even though you're not interacting with the job gauge itself. So yeah, lots of potency buffs, but you'll see why in just a bit. Then for Samurai, Tendo Setsugeka and the Kaeshi version of it have had its recast time reduced from T.2 to 2.5 seconds. This is longer than the normal GCD, the 3.2, so it probably didn't really feel that good. So making it just the normal GCD value is probably just going to make it feel more smooth, which I'm all for that. Then Viper, basically same thing across the road, range increase on your off-global cooldowns. I called this in the preview as well. I'm quite happy that this is the only thing that they have done so far, at least. We're not sure if other things are going to be changing going into Savage, but if this is the only change that they are making to Viper, then I'm all for that, because I think Viper plays really well. And this is a nice change to kind of give some extra range on your off-global cooldowns, so that if you were to disengage a tiny bit, you can still get them off just fine. Black Mage, Umbral Soul, now acquired at 35 instead of 76. This is going to be nice when you do a leveling roulette or when you're leveling the class, but it's not going to fix the class at endgame. So yeah, Black Mage remains to be seen if they actually do something else with this class going into Savage, because otherwise I can see a lot of Pictomancers going into the raid instead. Red Mage, Manification, effect duration has been increased from 15 to 30 seconds. This is basically going to be the effect that gives you the 6 stacks of damage. So when you press Manification, you get 6 stacks to use on your next 6 GCDs, which will make them deal increased damage. This is the effect that is getting extended to 30 seconds. And then also the off-global cooldown that you get attached to Manification, that effect duration also has been increased to 30 seconds. So you now have a longer window to get all of your attacks out. It's not actually going to buff the damage, it's just something to help with the comfortability of the job, I guess you could say. Then for Astrologian, also called this one, 2 charges, now 60 seconds. Really nice to see that they did both of these things, because now you can basically always save 1 usage for the 2-minute buff window, and you can have 1 usage for either off-global cooldown weaving during a portion of the fight, or to just save it for mobility, which is what I feel like Lightspeed was intended for in the first place. So it's really nice that we can now do both of those things. Then the 2 draw actions have had their recast time reduced to 55 seconds. This just basically means that if you accidentally end up drifting it somewhere by a GCD or 2, you can get it back in line for the next usage of it. And then Macrocosmos got its potency increased from 250 to 270. Not quite sure if that affects the healing potency as well, I don't think so. But yeah, those are some Astrologian changes. I feel the most important one over here is the light speed change, which is a really nice change. And then we go back to Monk and the whole reason why a lot of potency adjustments were made. Maximum stacks of Raptor's Fury reduced from 2 to 1, and maximum stacks of Quarrel's Fury reduced from 3 to 2. So Monk is going to be playing a whole lot more like the old Monk now. Back in the day, you were alternating Dragon Kick and Bootshine. You were usually alternating Twin Snakes and True Strike as well, although there was a rotation where you would do it like every third combo instead of every other combo. But that was like very tight, and I feel like they patched that out at some point, in Endwalker at least. So this just goes back to like the old playstyle of Monk. And then same thing with Demolish, you would reapply it every third combo, not every fourth combo like we are doing right now. With like the chakra gauge and such. So they've basically made it so that it's gonna feel a lot more like old Monk. You're gonna be alternating between your GCDs a whole lot more, and you're also gonna be doing your different positionals a lot more as well, because now you're on the flank pretty much all the time, and then every now and then you move to the back to hit a Demolish. I feel like this is going to make Monk feel a lot better to play again. I didn't really mind the current playstyle, but I did prefer having to move between back and flank a bit more. And this is just going to be doing just that. So looking forward to trying out Monk with these new changes. This is also the reason why a lot of potency adjustments have been made, because you're now hitting the upgraded versions less. So that is probably why they buffed everything up, because you're not always going to be using the enhanced actions. And then of course we've got a new raid tier over here, little sneak peek already. AAC Light Heavyweight, and then it's called M1, 2, 3, and 4. Weird name for a raid. But we'll see what it ends up being. Quite excited for this. I'm going to be running through this in a few hours when the patch hits live. But yeah, those are the balance changes that have happened in this current patch. There are more balance changes to follow in the Savage patch. We'll just go over those when the Savage patch hits. But for now, this is going to do it for me. So I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.